pleasure to be here, and yes, the accent is back. So I'm going to try to concentrate on most of the GI complaints that you tend to see with these kids, but mostly from the motility perspective, not necessarily from other potential GI manifestations. We're going to be talking about a little bit of that. So in terms of the clinical presentation, the phenotype or the different types of symptoms that you might see in these kids can range from what we call functional symptoms, which are more like the sensory part, that can range from like nausea and pain, to like more obstructive type of symptoms like vomiting, distension, constipation, or combination of both. And the reason is because, granted that mostly the smooth muscle is what is affected, which regulates the contractility and the motility of the small intestine, primarily from the stomach all the way down. It tends to be independent. It's not really regulated by the central nervous system. So the GI tract is similar to the cardiovascular system, that you have a pacemaker that regulates how fast your heart is going to be beating. The GI tract is the same. There are pacemakers that are already identifying the stomach, potentially in the colon, and maybe the one with the stomach is the same as the one for the small bowel, because they tend to behave like a complex. So it's important to understand or try to differentiate between those two types of symptoms, because the evaluation and the treatment is completely different. The fact that it hurts doesn't necessarily mean that it's an obstructive problem. The fact that you're vomiting doesn't necessarily mean that you just have an obstructive. It could be just related to a reaction or behavioral response to like pain or discomfort or nausea. So it's important that you study these symptoms well, so you diagnose them properly, and then you treat them properly. And I'm going to talk about also, like big part of this is going to be for motility, but I'm going to be talking about like probably the extreme of this, which is intestinal stool obstruction, which is like anecdotally, when many years ago, when we didn't know about all these genetic potential explanations for this motility that we know now, we used to clump them all under that name, which is basically the severe disabling disorder. Like they behave like a mechanical obstruction, as if you take the intestine and you twist it, and then everything starts to accumulate, and they vomit, they get distended, they have a lot of abdominal pain, but there is no mechanical obstruction. Simply the intestine is just not moving, and everything tends to accumulate, and things are not going forward. So it's important to understand this as the end of the clinical spectrum of this motility. That's like, we call it like the mother of all this motility. This is like the worst case scenario of this. But we're going to go step by step. And as I was telling you before, many years ago, this is a compilation that we did in our team about 12 years ago, where we looked at all the cases that had been reported all to that time with this type of presentation. But many, as you can tell, had urological problems, meaning like, yeah, the smooth muscle was affected. We had no clue what it was. We just knew that there were patients that had smooth muscle affected and they had bladder problems. And if you see the bladder problems, 63 out of the total, it's about 20%, had some type of mixed pattern. And if you look at how much of that like had biopsy, which is the age for histology, and then they were classified as like, when you look at when you take a piece of tissue and you look at is the smooth muscle affected, or is it the nerves of the GI tract affected? You could see that some of them like were classified as myopathy, or meaning like smooth muscle problem in the GI tract, and some of them were neuropathy, and some of them were mixed bag. But the thing is that this is based on reports. Many comes from countries that probably they were not using the best methods to try to identify properly this, but that's the information we had. And the most concerning part for us for the last 20, 30 years has been this, that if you see that the chances of like kids that have this type of extreme presentation and being TP independent is about half of them. And the mortality overall pool is about 20%. And for all causes. And this is all reported from the GI perspective, but the causes for death were like multiple, that were related to, most of them in these cases were related to complications of parental nutrition. Now, talking about etiology, what we know now, what we didn't know before, is that for a very long time, we used to classify this as a primary or as a secondary. But the difference is that we used to classify them as primary, and we used to call them visceral neuropathy or myopathy, thinking that the smooth muscle that is affected is exclusively of the GI tract, or exclusively of the GI tract and the bladder that shares certain similarities. And there is a list of the ones that we used to call sporadic or familiar, meaning like cases that happen just one in a blue moon in different groups, and there are some that comes in clusters in families that is more genetically defined. And then that's the list of the ones that we know, and there are more coming. And then if you look at the list of secondary, the way we think that this is going to evolve in the future, which is what has happened with adults, is that if I show you this is the list for kids, and it's from the same study that I compiled 12 years ago, where we looked at all the potential cases that have been reported in the world. The problem is that for kids, the vast majority were called idiopathic, like we don't know what the cause was. When you look at the adults, it's completely the opposite. It's about 80-90% adults who know what is going on. The reason is because most of the diseases that they present, they have more time to develop other symptoms that they can identify them over time, unlike our kids that we have to start working on them sometimes in the first month of life. So it's very difficult to try to study them or identify or look at patterns of presentations. And what we think is going to happen over the future is that all this is going to change. Similar to adults, we're going to start getting to understand this more, and we're going to be identifying more causes for this. And the secondary is going to be more like you have some type of primary reason, and the secondary is a reason to decompensate in different situations. So for example, you have ACTA2, but you have an infection, you get decompensated because you have the background problem that is decompensated by something else. Could be a metabolic problem, could be a medication that you give that can cause those type of problems. Just to give you an example, this is the new study that came out like 10 years after we did that, and this is the most recent. And if you look at it, in that report, they still call mainly idiopathic in children. We still don't know what causes these presentations in most of them. And you look at the adults, at least half they know what is the reason, if not more. More important, you look at the different presentations for children. The kids tend to have more of the obstructive presentation, meaning more distension, more constipation, more vomiting. While meanwhile, the adults tend to have more pain, nausea, chronic discomfort, more like IBS type of symptoms that are better tolerated. And then on top of that, as an adult, you can train, you understand what's going on, and you try to fight it. Unlike a kid, that it's not easy to tell them, you just try to deal with the pain, with the nausea that you're having. So it's a different situation. So that's why we believe, the level of tolerance and the quality of life cannot be really compared between adults and kids. And reflective of that, because there is more obstructive symptoms, we see more surgical interventions in kids than in adults. Way more. We do operate more on kids that have this type of problems. And we'll talk more about that, what we think that is probably the best recommendation based on evidence, not just on experience. The diagnosis, as of now, for the symptoms, not for the complex, is clinical. The clinical evaluation, the physical exam is very important. Like we in our center, we see second, third, fourth, fifth opinions from all over, and it's very important that we review all the records and make all the information so we don't repeat tests, unnecessary testing, unnecessary sedation, unnecessary anesthesia to try to perform things that have been done. Very important to group conditions that may mimic pseudo-obstruction or like intestinal dysmotility. Mechanical obstruction is the number one. As I was telling you, most of these kids have already had previous surgeries, so the chances of you having mechanical obstructions goes up. So it's very important that you consider that before thinking about like this is another problem. Chronic pain symptoms and then also Munchausen by proxy. The evaluation is very simple, and this is something that we did at the same time in this type of report that we did like many years ago, where we tried to look at what was the best general way to approach these kids, and then we looked at mucosal disease, we looked at inflammation, metabolic problems as the first intervention, and then if that is normal, then we look at imaging studies, trying to look and see if there is any chance that there might be a mechanical problem. Because as you know, there is an increased chance, and not just in active but kids that have similar presentations, including moya that has other types of genetic associations, even with achalasia and other type of specific motility problems, where you have a chance of mechanical problems. So if there is a presence of mechanical obstruction, that patient needs surgery. That's the one that we try to target for surgical interventions. The one that doesn't have evidence of mechanical obstruction are the ones that we're going to try to study, where we're going to do motility studies to try to map, to see specifically which parts of the body are affected, so we target the treatments for the specific body organs, because they work as different, and the medications that work for the stomach don't work for the intestine, and vice versa. The ones that we use for the colon are not the ones that we use for the stomach. So it's very important to understand what is the problem, so you know exactly how you're going to treat and approach these kids. And then, once we have a diagnosis like this, that's when we start to look at, okay, so we have evidence that there is this motility, that there is a piece, and then we move into looking for potential causes of this. This is the time when, like, if there is a constellation of other symptoms, from neurological problems and all that, we start looking for genetic problems and all that. That's the way that we see it from GI, which is the kids that have not presented with vascular problems or other type of problems early in life. You know, because there are kids that will present a little bit later, and they will present to us rather than present to the neurologist. And if there is no cause, those are the ones that we are going to be able to calling at the end of the day primary. So talking about what type of motility testing that we do, I think it's important that you know about this, because along the way you're going to be hearing about people talking about motility testing, motility consultation, motility referrals. So we basically do testing to evaluate the function of the esophagus, stomach, intestine, colon, and rectum. All of them. There are different type of testing. So the two most common ones, because they are the least invasive of these, are the esophageal manometry, which is a tube that we put from the nose like an NG and has multiple sensors. We do it a week. We do the test, takes about 10-15 minutes, and then we pull it out. Same as the anorectal, that it's a small catheter that we put through the rectum, and it goes in like a couple of inches. You measure the resting pressures of the baseline pressures of the anal sphincter, and then you stimulate a balloon with air to try to mimic poop and see what the responses are for the sphincter to know what type of neurological function we have in the anal rectum. So in the esophageal manometry, basically what we see is just non-specific changes. So the test is not that useful in general, you know. So I don't think that unless your kid has swallowing problem, dysphagia, like it's not aspiration, but more like it's having trouble with the food getting impacted or not passing. Granted, like there is no mechanical obstruction, that test is really not indicated unless there is a symptom like that. And the anorectal manometry in this population is normally most, you know, because this is basically the main reason to do it is to rule out Hirschsprung's disease that has been associated with other type of genetic problems, but not really with muscular, smooth muscle problems. It's more a neurological, an entire nervous system problem. So the nerves of the GI tract don't properly develop. And that one is basically to rule out that disease. So I'm not sure that these two tests are going to be really indicated in this population, but I want you to be aware of it. So when you hear about it, that your doctor might say, I want your daughter or your son to have this test, you know exactly what they mean, and then you understand try to understand if it's really useful or not. Now, moving to the stomach and the intestine, this is where most of the smooth muscle is independent. That means that it's regulated internally, so it's not affected by the central nervous system. So if you have a smooth muscle problem, it's more likely to affect symptomatically than swallowing, other than the neurovascular control, which is what Dr. Harmon is going to talk about after me. So this one, basically what we do the same type of tubes, except that we put it deeper. We put it all the way in the stomach, all the way in the intestine, as deep as we can. And it has sensors. We do it endoscopically, we do it with the scope and with X-rays, and we advance it. And then it has sensors that will tell me more or less what type of activity the stomach and the intestine has. And we have baseline, like we know what the stomach and the intestine should do at baseline, and what the stomach should do, what the intestine should do when you eat. There is a rhythm, there is a pattern with this, that contractions that are migrating every so and so. It's a constant, and that stops when you eat, and then we see exactly what type of changes you see with that. And it is important that is regulated by the internal pacemakers of the heart. So if this is affected, the problem might be more related to the nervous system, not to the smooth muscle. If you see this, but the amplitude is much smaller, meaning like the drive is there, but the muscle is just not strong to contract or to follow the signal properly, that's when you start getting concerned about more smooth muscle problems. So it might help you identify some of that, or at least guide you so you don't have to rely on muscle biopsies to make the diagnosis. Just to give you an idea, you saw how the normal looks. This is how it looks when it's disorganized. This is more the nerve type of pattern, like what we call a neuropathy, where like it's all disorganized. It doesn't follow the nice pattern that I showed you before. This is the typical that we see with these kids, which is not typical. There is a potential in the drive, but like the activity is, the muscle is not able to generate those contractions. And the important for this test is that these are the three main utilities in this population, which is that if you do the test and the test is normal, you can safely say that the smooth muscle could be affected, but it still has enough reserve capacity to generate activity, and that is not a problem for the symptom. You have to look for something else. The other one is that there is about 15 out of 100 times that your doctor is looking for a mechanical obstruction, your doctor is going to miss it. With MRIs, with CAT scan, with upper GI, with whatever testing that they do, there is still a very good chance, about 10 to 15% of the times, they're going to miss it. So this test can identify specific patterns, and we can tell you, looks like there is a mechanical problem. I can push the surgeon to try to investigate further to see if there is another problem. And we have been successful to identify patients that the contrast studies, everything looks okay, doesn't look like mechanical obstruction, and then when they get to go to the OR, they find the problem and everything gets better afterwards. So it's another way to help. And it can help you predict also who's going to do well long term. So if they're more towards normal, the more likely that the reserve function is fine. The defect is not a progressive thing, so you'll be okay in the long term. So it helps also prognostically. Okay, now, what happens when the problem is in the colon? We do the same. We do a colonoscopy and we put a catheter along the whole colon backwards. And then we map, and then we look at the response to the meal and the contractions. And this is what you see. You see contractions that migrate from the beginning of the colon to the end, and that's what we expect to see. This is the normal. So this is for the constipation type, the ones that has severe intractable constipation that is not responding to medications. That we're going to do this to try to map and see how bad it is, to see if the patient merits some type of surgical intervention. That's the main utility of this. It's important for you to know because we have the tool, but that doesn't mean that just the fact that you have constipation, you should let your doctor recommend this test. This is the sign for the kids that fail all medical therapy and they're concerned that maybe there is a need for some type of operation. That's how this test is used, not for medication. For medications, you have to use all the medications possible before you go for this. Now, moving to treatment. Very important that supported treatment, and as everybody has been talking throughout the conference, teamwork. This is a multidisciplinary teamwork. So this is not a disease that even though there should be one person that should act as a quarterback, like many times can be the what we call the coordinator services, or the pediatrician, or there are different roles every hospital has its own teams that have their own systems, and then everybody else around that to try to make sure that this is being seen from the same perspective, sending the same message, so everybody's on board with the same type of ideas. It's very important: nutrition, medications, and surgery. Let me go one by one. Nutrition, enteral. No matter how concerned you are that the nutrition might be causing symptoms, it is always preferred to give it by the gut than IV, for many reasons. And even in the cases where you are depending on parenteral nutrition, you need to do something enteral to make sure that you keep the stimulation to the GI tract, so that keeps working in the long run. Can be given via different ways. We'll talk more about it when I talk about surgery. And parenteral nutrition is safe, it has an excellent quality of life, but it has complications. You know, the complications can range from like having line infection that could be life-threatening, to having potential problems with clotting that can cause problems in particular in these kids, you know, and then you can run out of spaces that you can put the line, and also like can cause liver disease that, you know, can precipitate other types of problems that you might run into. Now let's talk about medications. There are medications for the stomach, like erythromycin, that we use it at a smaller dose. It's an antibiotic, but we use it at about a third of the dose. We start like that. The higher the dose, the better the effect, but also the higher the chances of side effects. The medication is not, unfortunately, is not that effective. The safety profile is excellent. That's why we use it at first. But it's about 50% success rate. So it's a good medication, but it's not fantastic. That's why we have others like metoclopramide and domperidone that. Unfortunately, domperidone is not available in the United States. It's not approved by the FDA, but some of us have special protocols and special permits from the FDA that we have a specific protocol that we can import it and we prescribe it through the FDA. And we have other medications like cisapride that is also off the market, and it's probably the most effective medication that there is. And we have it back through special protocols and special programs with the FDA. Triotide that we've shown that we've been able to successfully help these patients with the medication, be able to tolerate the feelings and then be able to get them off. And for constipation, it's a mix of like food softeners and stimulant laxatives. This is just a compilation of the last report that I showed you before, just to show you like the biggest problem for us is that if you look at this, this is the oldest studies for these type of diseases that have ever been reported, trials for this, and if you see, none of them says children. This one is 15 adults, 5 adults, 14 adults, 1 adult, 7 adults, 4 adults, that's it. That's what we have. And based on this is how we play with the medications that I've been telling you about for this type of problem. So it is a problem. We don't really have enough information. Right now, the trial that I showed you before, the octreotide came up right after this, is the largest ever in kids. And we have 16 kids. And that's the largest trial in the world for any medication for these type of problems. So we need more information. Surgery. We do not recommend surgical resection. There is no evidence that taking the piece that doesn't work and then putting the rest together, there is no evidence that works. In fact, we do not recommend that. The aim of surgery is for basically to help you provide feedings. So that can be by gastrostomy tubes, gastrojejunostomy tubes, jejunostomy tubes, and then we shown that like you can use Botox too, that can be useful to help with the emptying of the stomach in certain cases. And for constipation, we have two kinds, which are like we do anterior colonic enemas, or we irrigate the colon directly with a tube that looks like a small bottom, like a gastrostomy, where we put it on the cecum and then we irrigate daily, or we do diverting ileostomies in severe cases. So I just want you to hear about this, because in case that you have some idea about what you're talking about when they mention this. And then this is just to conclude. This is the algorithm that we published 10 years ago. It hasn't changed, unfortunately. You know, it's exactly the same. We made little modifications over the last 10 years because, as you can see, there is no many trials, no other really new information. So basically, we use medications. We use tubes when that doesn't work, and then we consider parenteral nutrition with tubes alternating whenever that doesn't work. If it's in the intestine, the same, and then for the colon, which is the hindgut, we use tracheostomies, tubes, ileostomies, diversions, and when that doesn't work is when we consider the ultimate that I think is not part of the scope of this talk, which is intestinal transplant. But I just wanted you to have an overview of all the potential scenarios that you can hear about in these conditions, in GI manifestations. This is mostly from the GI perspective, so there are other things that they'll be talking about. And then now Dr. Harnik is going to talk about specifically